Hello and welcome back to my channel. Jacob Payton here, and I'm doing a book haul for the month of July. I ended up getting way more books than I thought I was going to this month. Mostly because I did some trade-ins, so I ended up kind of getting a bunch of stuff that I wasn't planning on getting, and I also had some gift cards, so it was pretty cool. Definitely picked up some stuff that I've been wanting to read for a while, and also just some stuff I saw on the shelves that looked pretty cool. So let's dive into it, because this is kind of bigger than the ones I've been doing for a while. First up, I have Curfew, the most acclaimed horror debut novel of the year by Phil Rickman. And this is a paperback from hell. I love this cover. It's kind of foggy. You have this church in the background. It's just a really cool cover, and I'm excited to dive into this book because, as you guys know, I love paperbacks from hell. You know, I love those 80s, those really 70s, 80s, 90s horror. I love the covers. I also love the pulpiness of them. And of course, what I mean by that is they're usually very fast-paced. There's not a lot of wasted exposition. It's fun. They're good. I like them. This would be something that if I read it and like it, I'll definitely review it on the channel. And it says, no one observes the curfew anymore. The ringing is just a ritual, and the ancient standing stones that once surrounded the town are long destroyed. But Max Goff thinks they should be replaced. The millionaire New Age entrepreneur believes tourists will flock to Cribe to see the stones, to hear the quaint curfew bells, to feel the great life force. But where there's a life force, there's also a hunger, and in the light of the 20th century, Max Goff has forgotten that every ritual has its purpose, and the powers of the old age, pent up for centuries, never really die. They come back with a vengeance. So yeah, this sounds kind of fun. It kind of sounds like it's going to be a bit of a folklore, which you guys also know I love, so definitely excited to read this one. Next up was a book that I'm not gonna lie, I got this just because of the cover, and this is Janissaries 3, Storms of Victory by Jerry E. Pourlain and Roland Green. I also have a couple of Roland Green kind of like sci-fi, like sci-fi military fiction books that I've been meaning to read that are on my shelf. I'll be honest, I love this cover. It's science fiction. You got soldiers with guns, you got like Romans, you have knights on the back, you have a castle, you have a woman in chainmail holding a crown, and on the back it says, the ultimate adventure, kidnapped from Earth, Rick Galloway and his band of mercenaries are enslaved on the warrior planet Tran. Apocalyptic doom is hurtling toward the planet in the form of a devastating demon star. And I can't read all of it because sadly they put a bunch of stickers on the back that I've yet to take off, so I didn't need to do that. But kind of cool. I got this book for 50 cents on a clearance thing, so I'm also excited to read this, and I just absolutely love this cover. Next up is Dark Detectives, an anthology of supernatural mysteries, edited by Stephen Jones, and featuring Clive Barker, Neil Gaiman, Brian Lumley, Kim Newman, and Peter Tremaine, and others. Not the coolest cover, obviously, compared to what I just showed, but if you guys watch this channel, you probably read a lot of horror fiction, or even supernatural or urban fantasy, and these names are going to be pretty familiar, so I'm excited to see what they do with like some more supernatural mysteries or detective stories with supernatural elements. I mean, that is a powerhouse cast of authors on the front, so this was something I picked up. I'm also been reading more anthologies lately, and that's something I think I've talked about a little bit, maybe in my last video. I've been getting a lot of anthologies and also just reading more because I'm trying to write more short fiction this year. And part of that also includes reading more short fiction. Next up is Poppy Z. Bright's Drawing Blood. I have another Poppy Z. Bright book somewhere, and I know I have several ebooks. This is an author I've been meaning to read for a while just because I love vampires. And once again, if you guys watch the channel, you know how much I love vampires, so I've been buying a lot of vampire fiction books. And luckily, I've been finding a lot of them. And this says, Bloodlines. In the house on Violin Road, he found the bodies of his brother, his mother, and the man who killed them both, his father. From the house on Violin Road and Missing Mile, North Carolina, Trevor McGee ran from his sanity and his soul after his famous cartoonist father had exploded inexplicably into murder and suicide. Now, Trevor is back. In the company of a New Orleans computer hacker on the run from the law, Trevor has returned to face the ghosts that still live on Violin Road, to find the demons that drove his father to murder his family, and worse, to spare one of his sons. But as Trevor begins to draw his own cartoon strip, as he loses himself in the haze of lines and arts and thoughts of the past, the haunting begins. Trevor and his lover plunge into a cyber maze of cartoon ghosts and terror that will lead to either understanding, true understanding, or to a blood-raining repetition of the past. So yeah, that sounds fun. Southern horror, I don't know, I like it. I'm excited to read this. There are also some other Poppy Bright books that I have that I need to read. And then next up is Vamps, A Heart-Freezing Tales of Those Deadly Ladies of the Night, Vampires. And editors are Martin H. Greenberg and Charles G. Waugh. This is another anthology of vampire fiction, featuring Robert Bloch, Fritz Lieber, Tanith Lee, Seabury Quinn, Manly Wade Wellman. Lots of pulp authors here, lots of good stuff. So yeah, this will be something fun. I'm excited to check that out. And then next up are 2 books in a series, and that is Red Law and Red Law Red Eye. I have no idea what I'm getting into this series. This just sounds cool. It's kind of like a vampire detective book. I'll read the back of the first one. I won't read both just for time's sake. But it is, they live among us, abhorred, marginalized, despised. They are vampires. Known politely as the Sunless, the job of policing their community falls to the men and women of shade. The Sunless Housing and Disclosure Executive. Captain John Redlaw is London's most feared and respected shade officer, a living legend. But when the vampires start rioting in their ghettos and angry humans respond with violence of their own, even Redlaw may not be able to keep the peace, especially when political forces are aligning to introduce a radical answer to the Sunless problem. One that will resolve the situation once and for all. So yeah, this just sounds fun. I've kind of been getting into some like alternative vampire fiction, I guess. That might be a good phrase for it. I'm not 100% sure, but basically just vampire fiction that isn't straight up urban fantasy or, you know, the European gentleman moves to a small town type thing and has a horrible past and is, shocker, a vampire. I also have a vampire post-apocalyptic series. I've been kind of trying series that play around in other genres. I mean, this vampires are sounding like they're going to be the victims, and also, you know, there's going to be a lot of political scheming and stuff. So this will be fun, and it'll be something different than what I've been reading. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. Next up, should not be shocking if you guys have been following the channel for a little while. You guys know I'm a huge Warhammer 40k fan. Mostly until, well, I take that back. Until recently, it's just been the fiction, but you guys might not be able to see it, but there's a Cadian box set behind this chair. I've gotten back into playing. I've gotten back into reading the fiction pretty seriously, and part of that is I've decided to finally start reading the Horus Heresy. There are a lot of Horus Heresy books, like a lot. I think there's 25, somewhere like 25 or 27 is the whole series. I think the series is actually finished now. I started kind of reading them out of order. I just got the books that the library had first, and now I'm starting to read them in order. Starting with Dan Abbott's Horus Rising, which I found at a used bookstore, which is kind of cool. Yeah, the Horus Heresy basically lays out how the Imperium became what it is now. So it definitely is really interesting to kind of see what it was and to read what it, like, I guess read what it was knowing what it's going to become. Because I'll be honest, I did not expect a lot of the things that happen in this book to happen. I have already read this. I absolutely devoured this book. I will review it. I guess I won't get on a tangent. But I guess it's just shocking to see how different the Imperium used to be when, you know, Horus was a war master before he fell to chaos to what it becomes. And I promise, if you're not a Warhammer fan, that's all I'm going to say right now. If you are a Warhammer fan, definitely look for the review I will be doing of this book shortly. I have that. I have a couple other Warhammer books I need to review because I've been reading a lot of 40k because it keeps me in the zone while I am putting together models. And Imperium, yeah, I play Astra Militarum, and they have a lot of little units, obviously, because they tend to just get slaughtered. You know, so you need a lot of units on the board, and that means taking the time to put them all together. So it's good to stay motivated. Next up is Coffins, the Vampire Archives, Volume 3, including Harlan Ellison, Robert Bloch, Edgar Allan Poe, and many more. Edited with an introduction by Otto Penzler. So yeah, this is another vampire anthology I picked up. Kind of has this cover of like these two caskets on the front, or coffins. Sorry, I don't work in funeral homes anymore. I don't have to say caskets. They're coffins. Yeah, I'll be honest. I picked this up because it was on clearance. I read a lot of books, and one of the things, and maybe I'll do a video of this at some point, because one thing I dislike about anthologies, especially anthologies that are put out by major presses, a lot of times they reuse a lot of stories that are already available, and I don't have anything against reprints. But like, I see a lot of anthologies now when I'm in bookstores that have these awesome covers, and I'm like, oh, I would love this. This looks like a new horror anthology. But then I open it, and it's all authors that have been dead for more than like 60 years. And, you know, it's not awesome. I'll be honest, because they're not cheap. They're, you know, for like this, you know, I've seen some that have Edgar Allan Poe stories in it. And as far as I know, no one is getting money for all those reprints. So it's not like it's going to anyone, and it could go to new authors, right? They could take that money that they would and put out the same anthology with the really cool cover, just filled with new voices. You know, but that might also be because I'm a little biased. I'm a writer myself, and that's kind of how I feel. And also as a book collector, right? I mean, I love collecting books. Obviously, I love cover art. I love books with great cover art that I can, you know, move around, and I kind of use them as posters sometimes. I face them out on the shelves depending on how the mood takes me. You know, I'm seasonal with it, but it does get to a point where I don't want to keep spending, you know, especially with how expensive books are now. I mean, some of these anthologies are $18 to $25, and it's literally 300, 400 pages of just reprint stories of Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft and stuff like that, and that's great, right? If you haven't read those, that's awesome, but there are so many anthologies available that at some point it's just like, all right, guys, maybe put an anthology out. Like, it's cool. I love themed anthologies, but don't be afraid to get some new authors. That's all I'm saying. I'm sorry, that kind of devolved into a little bit of a rant. I am sure there is going to be some cool stuff in this. Like I said, that this was on clearance. And as someone that like reads voraciously, like I said, that if this was like a brand new book and it wasn't on clearance, I would be turned off a little bit, because as someone that I see these names a lot. They pop up everywhere, and I see tons of anthologies when I'm picking through bookstores, new and used, that have a lot of times the same names on them, and you know, really worst case scenario, the exact same stories. They'll put out multiple themed anthologies every year, and you know, Edgar Allan Poe isn't writing any more stories, is what I'm saying. And I am kind of sorry that did kind of devolve into a rant, and I do apologize for that. You know, I do hope that these anthologies maybe end up introducing new readers to Edgar Allan Poe and some of these authors, but it does kind of just feel like a cash grab in some occasions by big publishers that do it all the time, like literally every year. Yeah, I do apologize. I did rant about that. I might actually make a video on that because I'm definitely feeling some type of way. Once again, I'm sorry, and we're going to get this back on track. Next up, I have Tamsin Muir's Gideon the Ninth. I have not read Gideon the Ninth yet. I hear about this book all the time, and I have been meaning to. I think I have the ebook, and I think it was loaded on either my phone or my Kindle at one point. I'm not making a point because A, I love this cover. And it's got everything in it that I should like, right? I know it's about necromancers. I know it's pretty dark. It's also fantasy, right? And I think it's also a bit of a science fiction book. There's a lot of stuff that, you know, I see it across channels of different genre booktubers that I follow. So I know that it has all the tropes that I will like, and I don't know why I just haven't gotten around to reading it. So now that I own a physical copy, I can't put it off, and I will read this book. And for those of you that don't know, it says, the Emperor needs necromancers. The ninth necromancer needs a swordswoman. Gideon has a sword, some dirty magazines, and no more time for undead nonsense. Yeah, that sounds fun. And it says, Tamsin Muir's Gideon the Ninth unveils solar system of swordplay, cutthroat politics, and lesbian necromancers. Her characters leap off the page as skillfully animated necromantic skeletons. The result is a heart-pounding epic science fantasy. I love that. I also, And this is going to be, I'm going to talk about this in the review I'm going to be doing of all of Christopher Ruccio's Sun Eater series. I'm on book 3 right now. I actually love it. I love Sword and Planet. I am seeing a lot of Sword and Planet books, and they are being called science fantasy books now. I don't know why. I'm going to look more into that term. I don't know if it's maybe more marketable. If, maybe publishers have something against Sword and Planet, or maybe at one point Sword and Planet, like planetary romance, just became too wide of a genre. And maybe science fantasy just helps narrow it a little bit. I don't know, but I'm definitely going to investigate that, because as someone that loves Sword and Planet and planetary romance, it's something I'm very interested in. I love everything about science fiction with swords and magic, so I'm excited for this. I'm definitely going to read this. I will review it. Definitely, if you are interested in more of like science fantasy or planetary, like, Sword and Planet type stories, definitely watch out for my Christopher Ruccio reviews. They will be coming up soon, because I'm absolutely devouring the Sun Eater series. I know I'm behind on all reviews, and I do apologize for that. As happens with not only reading, but any creative thing, life tends to get in the way. And next up are some books that I picked up because I had a gift card and they were on sale, and I see their covers everywhere and they look really cool. The first up is The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. And it says, "It has been 20 years since the godlike augurs were overthrown and killed. Those who once served them, the gifted, were spared only after accepting the rebellion's 4 tenets, which vastly limited their powers. Davian suffers the consequences of a war lost before he was even born. When he discovers that he wields the forbidden power of the augurs, he sets into motion a chain of events that will change everything. To the west, a young man whose fate is entwined with Davin's wakes up in a forest covered in blood and with no memory of who he is. And in the far north, an ancient enemy begins to stir." Yeah, I've been reading a lot of fantasy lately, and the next book is also a giant blockbuster fantasy called The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I don't know. I don't know if it was ACOTAR, because I had I'll be honest, I had kind of stopped reading these doorstopper fantasies for a while, and then I started reading fantasy romances as part of this book club I'm in. They're very into them, and I'll be honest, I like them. They hit a lot of tropes, right? ACOTAR does a lot of Disney tropes in the first couple books. I'm probably going to do something on The Fourth Wing at some point, because I read that book. I liked it. My hot take is that it's Dragon Riders of Pern, a little spicier and a little faster on the action. And if you've read Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Riders of Pern, feel free to disagree or agree. I don't know. That's my weird hot take on that. I will definitely talk about that more in the review as soon as I figure out how I want to go about that. But yeah, it has somehow led into me, if you've noticed this year, maybe it was me getting back into Sword and Sorcery a lot, as well as a lot of like Taking the Damned and other of those books came out. And maybe I was trying to scratch that Sword and Sorcery itch. But yeah, I started reading big epic fantasy books again, which was something I had stopped doing for a while, mostly because I got burned out on them. And, they weren't, I feel like maybe it was just the ones that I was trying to read weren't doing anything for me. The names were always very hard to pronounce. A lot of X's, a lot of Y's, a lot of Z's. And they weren't really doing anything new, so I stopped for a while, and I don't know, I got back into it, and I don't know if it's like an algorithm that's being pushed to me, or if it's because I'm paying more attention to like BookTube and TikTok, and I'm seeing a lot of books that I hadn't seen before, and I'm seeing new authors, and I don't know, but I've been really digging all the epic fantasy that I've been reading, and I've been really devouring some doorstopper books. If you've seen any of the reviews I've done earlier this year and in 2022 as well, I mean, a lot of fantasy books, and a lot of some often pretty big fantasy books, and really good in all very unique worlds. Yeah, so I'm excited to dive into these. Priory of the Orange Tree definitely sounds like something I'm going to be into as well, as someone that likes dragons. And this is The House of Berensnet. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I do apologize. Has ruled Ennis for a thousand years. Still unwed, Queen Sabran the Ninth must conceive a daughter to protect her realm from destruction, but assassins are getting closer to her door. Each Durin is an outsider at court. Though she was risen, oh, E. Durian. I'm sorry, I did not realize that was her name. I thought it was like a title. My bad. Though she has risen in the position of lady-in-waiting, she is loyal to a hidden society of mages. Ede keeps a watchful eye on Sabran, secretly protecting her with forbidden magic. Across the dark sea, Tane has trained to be a dragon rider since she was a child, but is forced to make a choice that could see her life unravel. Meanwhile, the divided East and West refuse to parley, and forces of chaos are rising from their sleep. So yeah, this sounds like a lot of fun. I'm excited to read this. It sounds like it's going to be like political. There's going to be some action. There's dragons. That is all stuff I like. I like court politics. I like dragons. I like dragons a lot, especially when they're used in cool ways. It sounds like they're going to be used in cool ways. Anytime I see Dragon Rider, I assume they're going to be used in some sort of conflict, which I always enjoy reading because, you know what? I think if you watch this channel, I'll be honest, I don't think I have to explain why dragons are cool. You guys already know. So yeah, I'm excited to read this. These are all the books I picked up in July. These 2 fantasy books alone are pretty big door stoppers, so it will be a while before I get through those. So if you're anxiously waiting to see me review these, you're gonna have to give me a couple months. The Horus Heresy will definitely be reviewed probably in the beginning of August, and I will have that video out, and then it'll be a bunch of reviews because I have a pile of books that I need to review. I may have mentioned that in another video. Because yeah, I got a bit of a backlog. I took some months off. I had, life got in the way, and I do apologize for that for anyone who's been subscribed for a while and who's waiting for stuff. But I am getting back to it, so I am glad to all of you that stuck around, and I hope you guys enjoyed this book haul. Anything you've read, you think I should move up my TBR or move down, tell me why you liked it, why you didn't like it, let me know in those comments. And as always, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.